When it comes to buying land, it's pretty simple. Find the land, make an offer, and buy it. How hard can it be, right? But what if there were a few things that you were not made aware of before you bought this affordable piece of land? You see, buying an affordable piece of land is not quite as easy as it seems, but rest assured, what you're about to learn, you will never forget. Ask yourself, how would you feel if you found the perfect piece of land that you felt was more than affordable, only to find out it's in a high flood zone? Imagine buying a piece of land. You've already closed on this piece of land. It's now your land, but now you've got a stop order. You're being restricted on what type of home and the size of home you can actually build on the property. What if after a few years of buying that perfect piece of property, you discover that you don't own the mineral rights to the property? The previous owner retained the mineral rights and they've decided to start drilling on your land. Or what if you got a knock at the door and it's the neighbor just telling you that they're finally going to start building their house and that they're going to use the easement that's recorded to put in the driveway so they can build that property behind your property? Easements, servitudes, right-of-ways, building restrictions, these are just a few of the things that you can be blindsided with when it comes to buying that perfect, affordable piece of land. But before we get into all of that, we need to focus on how do we locate prime, affordable real estate. To begin, you need to ask yourself, what are you going to use the land for? Are you going to build a custom home? Is it your first home? Are you going to put a single-wide trailer on the home? Are you going to put a double-wide home? Are you going to put a modular home on the property? That, first and foremost, is what you need to decide. Next, you want to look at, where is the growth going? Where are people migrating to? That will be a huge determining factor of what direction you should or shouldn't go in. You see, what used to be the suburbs is now the city, and what used to be the country is now the suburbs. And soon, what is now the country will be the suburbs. This has been the pattern for literally centuries. Population grows, and as people grow, population grows, everything moves outward. And with that, you see prices increase in land as well as housing. It's a simple matter of supply and demand. And that's why it's important to kind of be ahead of the game, to look outside the scope of where everyone else is going, and perhaps look at where they're going to be going. Look, no one has a crystal ball, but we do have data, we do have information, and it's called reverse engineering. You have to look at the past and go, wait a minute, I remember when this area was just a field. I remember when this area was nothing but farmland, and now there's a Starbucks, a Target, and a Walmart. And look, if you see Target, Starbucks, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, even your local grocery store chain, that is where the growth is going. And here's why. You see, long before they put a multi-million-dollar structure on a piece of land, large corporations do multiple analysis of where the next growth pattern is going. Where are the population moving to? And look, have you ever noticed how they'll open up a Walmart and it's way out to where no one is hardly there, or you think that's just a little small town, and then all of a sudden, 5, 7, 10 years down the road, that small town is now a suburban area. So here's a question. Have you ever experienced that? Have you ever experienced where a Walmart popped up or a Target popped up? Typically, you'll see a McDonald's and then a Walmart. And when you see a McDonald's and then a Walmart, you just need to know that it's just a matter of time. It's absolutely coming. The people and population are coming. Perhaps you know someone, family member, friend, coworker, that's moved out to the outskirts of an area, or perhaps you've done this. Leave us a comment. Let us know how that's worked out for you, because most of the time when people move out to those rural areas, it's just a matter of 5 to 7, 8 years before property values triple. You see, it doesn't take long for these areas to become boom towns. All it takes is a grocery store. Once a grocery store drops, then people feel like, okay, well, at least I'm not that far from a grocery. And next, you'll see businesses go in, you'll see churches go in, you'll see more schools popping up, you'll see more shopping centers popping up. It's just that evolution of growth. So as things begin to pick up pace, we see these towns become the next boom town. All of a sudden, you have employers opening up businesses, and then more shopping centers, and then churches, and then schools. And with that comes more traffic. And with more traffic comes an increase in property values, which is a good thing, but we also see increased property taxes. Now, one of the biggest reasons why most people want a little piece of land and to move on the outskirts of town is so they can have their own little piece of freedom, their own little piece of haven, where they work every day, they're around people, and when they go home, they just want a little bit of peace and quiet. And they certainly don't want to be part of a homeowners association. And I get it, a lot of raw land is becoming subdivisions. It's kind of like a scene from the movie Back to the Future. But what's really weird is if you could go back in time 20, 30, 50 years, what used to be this huge parcel of land, or what is now this long, lengthy, established subdivision, used to be that empty parcel of land. We just didn't experience that, but now we're experiencing it when we're riding down the road and we see this huge open piece of property, and all of a sudden, you see subdivisions, you see houses going in. But believe it or not, these subdivisions increase property values, even if you're on 5, 10, 20, 40 acres of land. Population growth increases property values. The reason why is the demand. When you have more people move into an area, it increases the property value. Now let me give you a quick scenario. A couple in their 20s gets married. They decide to stay in the town that they went to college in. However, the prices are really not all of that affordable. So they decide to look on the outskirts of town. On the outskirts of town is a subdivision where they're building brand new homes. These are 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes with granite countertops and 9-foot ceilings. Now they can buy a brand new house on the outskirts of town for the same price as they can buy a 37-year-old house right there close to everything in the heart of the city. Now, this house that they're buying is brand new. There's only a small grocery store and a gas station, but they can afford a nicer, newer, clean house that they don't have to do anything to. And the decision is made. People typically go for new and they'll commute. And it's been that cycle for literally centuries. It's been that way for decades. You see, buying that new house is turnkey. You don't need to do anything. But when you buy the older house, you may have to replace carpet, countertops, cabinets. You don't know how old the HVAC is. You don't know how old the water heater is. Or what about the roof, which is one of the most expensive things you'll ever replace on a home. So once you see a subdivision begin its development, you'll see 5 or 6 or 7 houses go in. Afterwards, it really starts to domino because people follow people. We have a sense of confidence and encouragement knowing that if someone else took the lead, they were the first in the neighborhood, then it must be a pretty good thing to do. So let's look into that. We all fall into that. It's human nature. Now, if you're one of the first few people to purchase a house in a brand new subdivision, builders make those prices pretty incentivizing, and the reason being is because they need people. They know people are going to follow people, so they need people in those communities. And typically, if you're the first 12, 10, 15 people that purchase a house in a new development, you will see the highest increase in property values from the time you purchase that property, from the time it gets fully developed, can sometimes triple. So when it comes to buying a piece of land, though, just a piece of raw land, you never know what's going to go up behind you, beside you, in front of you, across the street from you. And that's why it's so important to always speak with the neighbors. You never know when a property of land has been sold. It could be 5 acres, it could be 40 acres or 140 acres, and they're going to put in a brand new development. So always speak with the local neighbors around the property that you're looking to purchase. The biggest mistake you can do when buying a piece of land is not having it surveyed. You need to have a property surveyed. By having a property surveyed, you'll know exactly where the pins are in the ground. And look, some properties are not surveyed. They've never been surveyed. And that's why it's so important to get the property surveyed. By getting the property surveyed, you'll know exactly what's on the property. You'll see easements, you'll see encroachment, you'll see everything that's recorded in and around that property or on that property. It could be that a survey has already been done. It could be a 50-year-old survey, and you can go to your courthouse records and see that property. However, if there's not a plat of the property, you better get a survey. And look, the biggest reason for getting a survey is to make sure there's no encroachments, there's no easements on the property, there's nothing on your soon-to-be property. You have a copy of the survey, you walk the property, and you make sure that none of anything that's on your property is on another person's property, and vice versa. And believe it or not, this happens more often than you think, because oftentimes, especially when you're buying a piece of property out in a somewhat rural area or really rural area, oftentimes it could be 3 to 4 generations of sellers and buyers purchasing property, and they're not aware that that fence or that barn is actually 3 to 5 foot over on the property that you're looking to purchase. Now, as I'd mentioned earlier, you need to check the flood zone and the flood maps on the property. When you get a survey, the surveyor will show you what flood zone that property is located in. There's A and variations of A. There's B and C and X. A is where you're going to have flood insurance. B and C, not so much. X is going to be the safest area, but you must know that survey will show you what flood zone that property's in, but you also need to know what section of the property is covered under which flood zone. You see, many of properties have a flood zone A and a flood zone X. The front side of the property could be A, the back side of the property could be X. That's why it's so important to know what are your plans with the property, what are you going to be putting on the property, and where you're going to be putting it on the property. And of course, before you buy any property, you need to verify, is there electricity close to the property? Is there gas service close to the property? But most importantly, you need to make sure that you, as the buyer, are buying the property and the seller is transferring the mineral rights to the property to you. See, a lot of people forget that underneath that ground, all the way, miles underneath the surface, is your land. However, land is sold and traded every single day of the week where the seller retains the mineral rights. So you have to know and make sure that you put in an offer to purchase a piece of property that with the deed and the title and everything that comes with the property, the mineral rights also go with the property. Now, we talked about locating that land. You got to find that land, follow people, they do lots of research, and then move on the outskirts just a little bit from where they're dropping in a McDonald's or a Walmart. Wherever a big box store is, that's where the growth is going. When you find that piece of land, though, you'll want to make sure you get a title policy on that property. And look, some states are different. Some states, you as a buyer have to pay for your own title policy. In other states, the seller pays for your title policy. Irregardless, the title policy is going to cover any back taxes, liens, and coverages because the closing attorney is going to take that title search and make sure there's none of that on the property or connected to the property. Then you'll get a title policy, and the title policy, it's not like traditional insurance where it covers you into the future. It covers you into the future, and it also covers you into the past. You see, a title policy is paid just one time, and it covers the entire property of which you own for the entire time that you own the property. And it also covers anything that that owner of the property may have done in the past, like liens, tax liens, mechanics liens. That title policy will prevent anyone from knocking on your door and saying, hey, you owe me money. Hey, this property I did work on. None of that can happen as long as you have a good title policy.